Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Macon-Bibb County Committee of the Whole meeting. Today is Tuesday, December the 14th, and the time is now 9 o'clock. We'll begin our meeting with the approval of the minutes. The minutes is the minutes for the Committee of the Whole meeting from December the 7th, 2021. Can I get a motion to approve? Got a motion by Commissioner Bronson. Get a second? Second by Commissioner Howell. Any discussion regarding those minutes? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the minutes, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. We do have an announcement today. I see members of the Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority here today, and I'll ask them or the representatives to approach the podium for a brief presentation.
Good morning, Council, or Commissioners, and Merry Christmas.
Good morning.
Thank you all for having us today. We actually come on the Hill today to actually bring good news. We're not asking for anything, or we don't want anything today. We're going to talk a little bit about the authority, some success we have, and we have a presentation for you guys as a Christmas gift. First of all, we'll talk a little bit about the Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority and kind of what it's done this year. Some of you may have heard that Macon-Bibb County has been accredited as an accredited economic development organization. There's only 67 of us in North America, 2 of us in the state of Georgia, and we happen to be one of those guys. And I want to say thanks to Stephen and his team, his staff, for all that they have done to make sure that the information that those guys needed and put out were true and accurate, and to his whole team and what they have done this past year. I can't say enough about Stephen and his leadership, and I thank him and his team so much for what they've done. Beside me here, I have Dwight Jones here too. He's our vice chair. He's with us today, and he's joining us for the presentation as well. Thank you, Dwight, for what you do. Mayor Miller is also, can't see him back there. There he is right there. He's a part of our team too. So thank you, Mayor, for what you do and what you've done for our organization as well. And thank you, Commission, for giving us the tools necessary for us to go out and to do economic development. Without you guys and the partnership that we have with the Water Authority, Board of Education, Chamber of Commerce, all this success that we have doesn't truly happen. We say all the time, this is a team effort. There's no I in team, and there's no I in team in economic development. It takes a bunch of us to get it done, and again, thank you guys for giving us the tools necessary to do it. Just a little recap, and we'll go back and talk a little bit for about 2021. Obviously, in 2021, we had Dean Baldwin we announced in 2021. We've had Schnitzer we've announced. I think Robbins North is finally at which is the old Boeing building, is finally at its 100% capacity. Is that right, Stephen? I think they're up and going. So another successful year for Macon-Bibb County. But anyway, enough talking about some success. Let's get to the point of why we're here today. So some years ago, I think it started back in 2017, the consolidated government and the school system and the industrial authority got together, and we started down the road of the pilot payments, and y'all gave us that opportunity and that tool to use to entice or to give an incentive to companies that would come to Macon-Bibb County. And we started that venture, like I say, in 2017, and the first check that we actually broke to you guys was $246,000. And we were just getting started at that time, and from that time it has compounded and compounded. So today, I come on the Hill to present the mayor and the commission with a check of our pilot for $1.3 million, almost 1.4. Yes, and this represents several companies from Graphic Packaging, Nichiha, Kumo Tire, Irving Tissue, Tyson Food, Pactiv, Amazon, First Quality, Mr. Chips, Frudenberg, Star Snacks, and Paragon, and they make up that portion of you guys, $1.395 million. They make up that portion of the pilots. But this is just to say thank you so much for allowing us to go out and do what we do, giving us the tools necessary to do it. You guys have been our biggest cheerleader, our biggest supporter, and we just want to say thank you and Merry Christmas.
All right. Commissioner Howell, you have something to say?
Yes, I do. Sir, I just want to say to you and your entire staff and everybody that helps over there at the Industrial Authority, as a new kid on the block, I hear a whole lot of people talk about how much money that we give you guys and what we give y'all every year. We don't give you anything. It takes tools to do business. You got to spend money to get money, and this is just a fine example. I hope everybody's watching to see what you guys give back when we plant a few seeds. So thank you for what you do to everybody. I understand what goes into all this, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Thank you. Yeah.
By the tree.
Yep.
One, two, three.
Yeah, now let me officially sign this check and give to Julie. Thank y'all.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to a couple of items on the agenda this morning. Number one is item 3A. It's a new alcohol beverage license to Discount Grocery located at 2596 Rocky Creek Road. We've included some information on there, but your reading should tell you that this legal recommends that this particular license be denied based on the inspection of the premises found it failed to meet the criteria of a grocery store because the business offered no fresh produce, eggs, or fresh meat, and was smaller than the 10,000 square foot requirements to qualify as a grocery store. So that's going to be the recommendation. We have an attorney here. That's right. Attorney here to answer any questions that you may have, but the recommendation from the administration is going to be to deny the license. So understand that recommendation. We have a motion to approve the denial. Got a motion by Pro Tem Clark, second by Commissioner Howell. Questions for the attorney? I understand that Attorney Howard is in Blight Court this morning, so we have Ms. Davis standing in his place. Okay, we have a motion. I'm sorry, Commissioner Tillman, do you have a question?
Yes, sir. That is, I know in District 9, and I know a lot of folks have used that store and utilized that store. There's a store that's recently been built next to it, and the community services. My question is, and we know some heinous things that have happened there at that particular business. Folks, whether it's robbing, getting shot and killed there. But what do we do to allow the folks to get in compliance? Do we give them so many days, months, or what has to happen for them to get in compliance?
I think at this point, Commissioner Tillman, our standard procedure is we take a vote on this today. A letter is generated to the owner of that business, giving them the information on why it was denied, and they have an opportunity to appeal that. That will come back to our attorneys and take its normal process through commission.
Well, I understand about the appeals process, but I mean, not just this one, but in the future, do we set something in place that, because I think what we're saying is that they don't have certain items there. I'm just trying to figure what is it.
I think number one, they say they're a grocery store and they don't meet the statutory requirement of 10,000 square feet to be a grocery store. So first and foremost, they improperly label themselves as grocery.
Because Rocky Creek Food right across the street is actually a grocery store, and
right.
so yeah, I don't think it's a big deal there, but just folks getting gas. But I support that initiative to deny it as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a motion and seconds. No further questions. All those in favor of approving the denial, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. The next item is a new alcohol beverage license for beverages on South Macon, located at 4100 San Carlos Drive, Macon, Georgia 31206. This is a Coors, Middle Georgia beverage, I believe, out there near Guy Payne. And this is a I think they're acquiring another business as well, and that's the reason they're coming before us. They're acquiring a business, another alcohol business, and consolidating that or merging with that business, and therefore they're meet all the legal requirements otherwise. So that is my motion. Can I get a second? A second by Commissioner Tillman. Got a motion and a second. Any further questions for our attorney? Seeing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Thank you. Item 4A is a resolution authorizing acceptance of Council of Accountability, Courts, Judges, Housing Grant through the Emergency Solutions Grant Program from the State of Georgia Criminal Justice Coordinating Council in the amount of $132,510 with no local match, awarded to the Macon Judicial Circuit Accountability Court programs. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Jones. Anyone have any questions regarding this particular grant? Seeing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item 5A is an item that we tabled last week, but we discussed for Mr. Watkins. So at first, I want to go ahead and make a motion to untable that item for discussion and potential voting today. As my motion, can I get a second to untable? Got a second by Pro Tem Clark. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of moving this from the table for discussion today, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion is now accepted and is now off the table. So Commissioner Watkins, this is your original sponsor of this item. So if you could give a little information about this item before discussion, and we'll take a vote. Yes, sir.
Again, this is an attempt to gain better awareness and data on people experiencing homelessness within our community by creating a survey form and engaging partners throughout the community to act as community intervention workers to ensure that those forms are filled out, and also have those intervention workers cross-trained to provide adequate information about the resources that are available and provide some level of street level case management and social work. The item anticipates us going through procurement procedures to actually vet and create the relationship with partners. The document states $250,000, but it's up to that amount based on what feedback we receive from vendors. But yeah, I guess that's the short version of it. And also part of that, there's a rough draft budget, and that also includes support from the sheriff's office to make sure that those intervention workers have police support when they're going into some areas that could be considered dangerous or seedy.
Thank you, Commissioner Watkins. Pro Tem Clark.
I just wanted to thank Virgil for bringing this forward. I worked in homelessness. I ran a legal clinic at the largest shelter in the South for 3 years and was point person for the homeless count in Atlanta for that shelter for 2 of those years. The need for services to be broad and deep to affect people's lives in the way that are necessary can only be done when you have accurate counts for people that are unhoused and in really volatile situations, and that costs money. I'm really also encouraged the up to language. I think that's great. I don't think that $250,000 is necessarily what we need to do to get the job done, but it is going to cost money. So I think this is a really good idea. I think that it allows us to understand homelessness at a data level in Macon-Bibb County, and I'm incredibly supportive of it. And next year will be, I've drafted some legislation based on previous conversations with stakeholders, with the mayor, homeless service providers, about referrals to homeless service providing through law enforcement. I'm not prepared to bring it forward today because I'd like to talk to Sheriff Davis about it and make sure that we're all on the same page there. But that's something that I look forward to discussing with y'all in the coming year. But thank you.
Thank you, Pro Tem Clark. Commissioner Lucas.
Yes, I want to just echo what has already been said and express my support for this. I think one of the main reasons we need to do it, But the other thing is, it says up to, I don't know what the exact figure will be, but up to gives everybody, I think it takes away everybody's heartburn as to what the exact figure will be. And then also, I just think with federal monies that are coming in for these different programs that are being made available to Macon-Bibb County, they're intended to help certain groups of people. And you have to identify how many of those folks you have. That just makes sense. You always have to do that so that you can account for the monies that are spent. And why else would you engage in this kind of activity if you were not going to make a difference and know how many and who you're working with? It just makes sense to me. So I'd like to sign on as a co-sponsor on this. I endorse this. I think we're going to get valuable information, and I think it's something that's going to be an ongoing thing, because this problem hasn't gone away in years and years and years. It's not going to go away immediately, but we can make a dent in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. Commissioner Howell?
Yes, I think the up to takes a lot of heartburn out of it for me. My question is, not being adversarial, my question here is, though, I'm assuming that people will apply for this job. Who's going to vet those? Is that something that comes back to us and we vote on, or?
So we'll go through our normal procurement process. Our Franklin Lawson and his team will craft up an RFP, a request for proposal. It will be published on our website, as it always is, and vetted. Committee will be formed. Those proposals will come back, meeting the qualifications and ranked accordingly. Once that process is completed, it'll come back for the commission for a final vote.
Clears it up for me.
Yes,
Thanks.
sir. Commissioner Wilder?
Basically, just want to say I'm on board with us doing a census to determine the need. I do, I mean, it's not a secret. We are already doing a lot for the homeless already here. And I just want us to be real careful with what we do, and you answered a lot of mine with what you just said with the procurement process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilder. I will say a couple of things. I know I've got one more speaker that I want to make sure that the public understands, because I heard something this morning from someone that said Bibb County was going to pay $250,000 to count homeless, and that's not entirely correct. I know a lot of times the narrative in the community can be somewhat different than reality, and the reality is that this is up to $250,000 for multiple things. Of those, which is included, is a count. It's necessary, in my opinion, to be able to count, because we can't continue to address the issues that come before us, especially with our most vulnerable population, if we don't know who they are, where they come from, and as much as we can about them. It's not simply walking down to an area and using a clicker and just counting people. It's not calling Brookdale and saying how many beds you have and counting. It's not going to Salvation Army and saying how many people do you have there and counting. We must know where these folks are coming from. It helps us as a community know how to allocate our resources. For example, each year we have 300 to 400 people who get out of our penal institution that may call Macon their home, and they may re-enter our community. It's important that we know who these folks are to make sure that when they get back here, they have some contact, they have some services, they have the potential for a job, and a lot of those end up on the streets and being homeless, so it's important for us to know where they're coming from. It's also important for us to know that our neighbors to the north and south of us are not just simply getting the folks there out of their communities and then sending them here to Macon-Bibb County. And it's also important for us to know that if these folks are those that we can get into housing, or if they have more needs related to drugs and alcohol so they can get those services, or if they're chronic and we need some other assistance, including asking the state of Georgia potentially to fund another hospital like we have at Central State Hospital to help us all out. So these are a lot of the reasons that we're looking at this, and I want people to know that we're going to use this money wisely. It's going to go through our process, and I'm certainly in support of this. Commissioner Lucas?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the Homeless Coalition. I know that there's an organization that's been pulled together, and it's made up of all of those groups that serve the homeless. I wondered if anybody knew if they were meeting on a regular basis, if they were looking at, whether services were overlapped or how they could work together, and also utilize some of the funding that's coming in. So I guess that's an open question.
They certainly meet on a regular basis. So we've attended some of those meetings. We have our own coalition within that we've been working with them to try to see how we can streamline some of these services and not overlap and be duplicative, and we can leverage our funds. So I think that's an ongoing conversation that we're having with them, just like we were having on the panhandling that we discussed earlier. And I think Mayor Pro Tem Clark wants to bring forth some legislation on that, and working with our sheriff and other folks as well. So I think there's a lot of conversations happen. But right now, we need to get an accurate count, make sure that we streamline the whole process and get everybody on the same page. And I think that's a good effort that's happening.
I think it would be good for them to do something as an information activity for the public, because people give to a lot of different causes, and taxpayers' money is going into funding a number of the services that these organizations provide. And I think from time to time you have to remind people of all the things that you're doing, because they just don't know. That's why they have silly questions about what we know are silly, because they just don't make sense. Like, why we got to count the whole, that kind of stuff. So they just need to make sure that people know what it is that they are doing with that money that they get. And we don't need to assume that everybody knows. So I look forward to that.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. Commissioner Jones?
Yes, sir. I still have some heartburn about this, and it's easy to say up to $250,000. Typically, governments tend to spend all that they can spend. We've got a lot of money raining from the skies from the federal government, printing money as fast as can be printed, and I'm thankful for it, but I'm also leery of it. So I'm not so sure we don't have an overlap here. I'm not sure of the bureaucracy involved and who's going to do what, and just not so sure of the process. So I'm thankful we've got the warming center. I like to call it a transition center because I think that's what it is. It's helping people, giving them a hands up and changing their lives, helping them to move on, in most cases to become a citizen that can be independent and live on their own. I hope that continues. I am leery of other communities whereby are possibly sending people here, and maybe this is a partial remedy to that. I'm not so sure, but I'm not in favor of it at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Okay, we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor, I'm sorry. We don't, my bad. We had a motion and second off the table. At this time, I entertain a motion and a second for a vote to pass this. Commissioner Watkins, would you like to make that motion? Got a motion by Commissioner Watkins, second by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Now we have a motion and a second. It's no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. Going to move on to contracts for implementation or renewal. Item A is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for construction with Sam Hall & Sons for the renovation of Gateway Park in the amount of $166,413 to be paid from Capital Improvement Fund, Parks and Beautification, Building, and Building Improvements. I believe this item was also tabled at the last meeting. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to remove that from the table. Got a motion by Pro Tem Clark, second by Commissioner Lucas. We have a motion and a second to remove that from the table. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. It will be removed from the table. We do have our attorney here this morning to answer any questions. We also have our Parks and Beautification Director, Michael Glisson, here as well. As I remember the conversation the last time, we had been through the whole process of design phase over the last year, and it came through our procurement department to bid out the appropriate work that needed to be completed. It went through the procurement process. Sam Hall & Sons was preliminary awarded the contract, and it came before this commission for a vote. but there were some questions about the work to be done, the design, as well as potential of the statute. So at this time, Commissioner Watkins, I think, has a question first.
Just kind of to echo the mayor's same question. As you say, y'all have been designing it for a while. I don't know if or the bodies, I haven't or can't recall what the final design was going to look like. So I was hoping for some type of image of that, and also learned about that the current Otis Redding statue won't be in that place. So I've gotten a little bit more information about what's happening with the Otis Redding statue, but I'm still not clear on, are we replacing that with some type of art fixture or what?
And I think if we can, just a moment, will you be able to put that up there? Communications, will you be able to put that design? Yeah, it's not it's a draft drawing, so it's not really going to be something you would expect as far as artistic drawing.
Behind the renovation of this park is that, you know, currently just as busy as that intersection is and everything, we're trying to get it as more of a pass-through park and a kind of an entry point to the trail and not so much an event space. Just because, I mean, how dangerous that intersection is, we don't want to encourage people to be kind of, you know, crossing roads and things like that to come in there and actually hold events. So we're kind of just opening it up some, you know, making it more of a lawn area with just nice trees and things like that and kind of be a gateway into downtown. But as far as any type of art fixture, that's not in the plans. And as y'all know, the Otis Redding statue belongs to the Redding family, and we moved that. We took it out for them back in July, and it's under kind of lock and key in a storage facility downtown. And I'm really not up to date on what their true plans are, but I do know that they have plans to put it back on display at some point, but it won't be at this location, and I'm not sure if it'll be on Macon-Bibb County property at all, to be honest with you. I'm really not sure. But yeah, like I said, the whole goal behind just the renovation of this park is GDOT, they kind of, whenever they came in and were doing their stuff, they kind of, you know, I know they tore up the fountain originally, the fountain controls, kind of did some damage in there, and which I think, from what I understand, they were already kind of torn up anyway. So, you know, that's kind of where this whole idea stemmed from, is instead of putting the fountain back and spending all kinds of money doing that, let's just open this back up, make it more of a pass-through park and an entry point to the trail. So.
Okay. Mr. White, you have any more questions? Anyone else on the commission have any more questions prior to taking a vote on this? Now, my understanding is you've been working with Wimberly Treadwell as far as the design. She was selected way back when the process began, maybe last December.
Yes, sir.
The location and the specific information regarding the Otis Redding statue is completely in control of the foundation. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And it's nothing that Bibb County has wanted to do. I think I see a copy of that, and it is a drawing, Commissioner Watkins, but on your screen, you will see the layout there of the area. I'm not sure if they can zoom in or not, but that's Gateway Park there. That's a renovation plan. I think that previously got submitted before commission and certainly was included in the bidding process. But it's something that's been such a while, maybe you can refresh your memory by looking at that.
And I think part of it too, this kind of came in right at the end of Mayor Rickards' term, and I think just in the transition, and we didn't quite have the initial funding we needed. This part of this is being funded by the reappropriation of the Poplar Yards. That was towards the end of Mayor Rickards' term. And even with that reappropriation of funds, we still didn't quite have enough money to do this, so I had to request it in my CIP. So just all that just kind of drug this out a little bit longer than probably what it should have been. So I think that might have been where kind of some of the confusion and delay came from.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark, you have a question?
Yeah, well, this plan, does it account for some of the silt collection and damage that happens in that area every time the river floods?
Well, that's actually that lower section that's kind of down by the river where you see that little circle there. That's where that little brick plaza was, where some events were held. But we're actually bringing it all back up just to account for that. And that's really part of the reason why we wanted to redesign this too, is just because it would flood 10 times a year and just create a mess down there.
Sure. That
was impossible to maintain. So the goal here is just to bring everything up and make it just, you know, more easily maintained.
That's great. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the design of the Gateway Park and what's going to happen there? if you want to come up forward, I think we've got some pictures of this on, if you've got some additional information for them, I'd be happy to pass around, that'd be great. We will. We will. Yeah, if you can identify yourself, and Mr. Glisson will be happy to pass those out for you or someone.
Thank you, Julie. Good morning. My name is Wimberly Treadwell, and I'm the landscape architect. And congratulations on the commission meeting. This is awesome. This is a simplification, just like Michael said. The river flooded. The bottom of this river averaged 30 floods a year. Yet the elevation where you see we're stopping now only floods maybe every 3 years. So we think it's a great win-win.
I'm gonna give them a chance to review some of the documentation that's being floated around here on some pictures and some drawings. And at the completion of that, we'll see if they have any more questions prior to taking a vote.
So much.
Is the color the same? It just looks like one is before and that, but they look the same.
Exactly. The difference is that we will demolish the stairs down to the lower plaza, and that will become a grassed hillside that will flood. We're leaving the base because we don't want to get involved in river construction. That base right now, that patio down at the bottom, is under about 8 inches of dirt. So I passed around that picture of the before so that you could see how it did flood regularly. That's a Google Earth picture. And then the elevation where Otis used to be will have an expanded plaza. And that will be at the same elevation that now currently has that that'll be middle level.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, commissioners?
It's coming out, the ones that are down there, are they coming out? Because I know there were some problems with.
There were some problems. They're still there. They have not been renovated, and we really have not budgeted to renovate them. So right now they're just locked. It's something that could.
I know a lot of people walk, and that's a part of the distance, and it was kind of convenient, but you really couldn't use those bathrooms. So.
Yeah, it certainly has its challenges. Excuse me. It certainly has its challenges there in that environment, but right now we're not planning on any renovations to those or opening those up right now, and it's not been budgeted for, but if that changes in the future, we'll revisit it. Commissioner Tillman, you have further questions?
I would ask, I don't know if it's Dr. Moffitt or someone in administration, I'd like to know the value of the statue. Because if we're housing the statue, they need permission to put it on our property, and we're currently housing it. We maybe need to just purchase the statue so we can maybe have some rights as to where it goes. Because like Commissioner Watkins, I was not aware that it was taken down, and all of a sudden now we're getting all this talk and chatter about the statue. So we know that folks have to have permission to put it up, but I think it just was because, you know, of who the statue is that, you know, things just happen. All of a sudden, people notice that it's missing. So maybe we need to just know the value of the statue, and you know, the native son needs to belong to Macon-Bibb County.
Yeah, I don't think the statute's for sale, but certainly you can reach out to the foundation.
Now you gonna start something when you say that. I did not say we trying to buy the statue.
You said the value of the statue.
I want to know the value of the statue.
It.
I do want to know the value of the statue.
Okay. Well, certainly if somebody.
Because I received some calls about the statue as well, and so you know.
I think, like the commercial says, it's probably priceless. So I don't think there is a value on it. So thank you, Mr. Tillman. We do have a motion and second. If no further questions regarding this items, we'll take a vote. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Be sent to consent agenda. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item B, which is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a lease agreement with Sandra Curry, 203 West White Road, Byron, Georgia, an amount of $1,350 per month, plus utilities and insurance payable out of the Circuit Public Defender's Office budget for use of Circuit Defender's Office. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Got a motion and a second. This is a renewal of a lease for a lease of partial term in Byron, since we do provide Public Defender's Office and District Attorney's Office from Bibb, Peach, and Crawford, which is our circuit. This is part of that rent obligation, and this comes out of the Public Defender's budget that we give money to. So we do have a motion and seconds. No further questions. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item 7 is an item for appropriations. We have an ordinance to amend the fiscal 2021 general fund, $186,392,211 in total revenues, and the same total expenditures, resulting in supplemental appropriation of $2,551,318 and other year-end adjustments. Sorry, my eyes are going this morning. Commissioners, all the information has been attached to you, and a spreadsheet should have in the end. This is your generally the same thing you do at the end of each and every year, that you coordinate everything up and adjust it for the year-end budget. We do have Christy Lucy, who's our finance director, here with us today, prepared to answer any questions that you may have. Otherwise, go ahead and entertain a motion to approve and get a second, and we'll ask any questions after that. So I'll take a motion to approve. Got a motion approved by Commissioner Howell. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Lucas. We do have a motion and a second. And we have any questions for Ms. Lucci?
Of those who are listening, to have the short version of what we're doing, because they don't have the benefit. They can go to and see the actual language, but an explanation, a short explanation, I think would help.
No problem.
The entry that we make at the end of the year is just to clean up some of the accounts. Most of these, especially after line 20, are just transfers. The entry looks large, but it's just transfers, and most of these departments were able to cover any overages in certain accounts within their own budget. We had a few Board of Elections needed some additional funding related to the election. That was this year. We've got the coroner needed some additional funding for body storage. So code enforcement needed some additional funding. I mean, there was a small adjustment for GMA dues, but the majority of the 2 pages are just transfers within the budgets of these departments. This is not necessarily a supplemental from fund balance. We were able to cover all of this with funding that was received for the motor vehicle TAVIT and the local option sales tax that came in over budget. Now remember, that's not saying that we had a large increase. We did budget less for those because of COVID. We did reduce our budget thinking that we might receive less money in those accounts, but they did wind up coming in, at the prior year level, if not a little bit more, but it's not a large increase. This due to the funding where we cut some of these 10% because of COVID expectations that didn't necessarily hit these accounts like we thought.
Thank you, Ms. Lucci. Any other questions? We do have a motion and a second. No further questions. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Lucci, for being here today. Item B is a resolution authorizing a supplemental appropriation from confiscated fund balance in a total amount of $60,000 to provide funds for payment of settlement agreement. I'd ask for Sheriff Davis to approach, as well as our attorney, Sarah Davis, to answer any questions or explain this a little bit more detail. It's a little vague on the determination here. Want to make sure they understand what we're voting on and what needs to be done today.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Mayor Miller. This measure comes before you to appropriate certain funds, removing them from the confiscated fund balance to use as the payment of an agreement for the transfer of some firearms. And Sheriff Davis would likely have a bit more specific information than I will for this.
All right, good morning, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, behind the tree there. what this stems from, several years ago, the sheriff's office entered into a contract with a business to basically swap firearms. This was during the time also, if you'll remember, whenever law enforcement agencies, if they had surplus firearms or confiscated firearms, we could not destroy them. We had to either sell them or keep them. But these were some tactical firearms for our SWAT team and some things like that. So we found a business that would basically swap even for some firearms that we had for some upgraded tactical weapons. These are like machine guns and that sort of thing for SWAT. Well, as time went on, because these are tactical weapons, there's certain federal firearms forms that have to be filled out and have to be obtained. And during the process of going through this agreement, this company wasn't able to get all of the federal firearms transfer papers signed and taken care of as needed. So there was some back and forth, and eventually this company brought action against us for breach of contract, but it was all about the firearms paperwork. Well, as time went by, we sort of negotiated back and forth, and then the law changed a little bit to where now we can do what we need to with surplus firearms, but these types of weapons are going to be kept. We're not going to put them on the street. It's sort of a win-win for the sheriff's office because we get to keep the firearms that we had traded for. That's basically what we're paying for in the settlement. Plus, we get back those firearms that we had originally traded with this company. So we get to keep all of these guns in place, and the monies that we will spend is basically paying for those guns that we already had. So we're really not out anything. We're really ahead a little bit because we get to keep the ones that we had originally traded and get to keep the firearms that we had obtained during this agreement. And so this is a negotiated down settlement. It started off significantly higher, as you can imagine, in litigation. It starts one place and then you work down, and this basically is just a little bit more than what the agreed upon price for what the firearms are going to be to start with. So I think it's a good outcome, and go ahead and settle it out this way.
Mr. Tillman?
Yes, sir. While you're here, Sheriff, I got a question about firearms. Long before I became a commissioner, we partnered with my organization twice to do gun buybacks. One, we were together at a church over in South Macon years ago, and then we partnered with a local electronics store, and they gave radios back. From your experience over the years, because we often hear folks talk about we need a gun buyback, have those been successful, and what are the successes of those gun buybacks? I just want to clear that up once and for all while I've got you here and we're talking about gun confiscations and so forth on the gun buyback.
Well, there are different schools of thoughts on gun buybacks. I think that in some instances they serve a purpose. Any gun that you get off the street is a gun that's not on the street anymore that could not potentially harm somebody. But in the past, the types of firearms that we get in these gun buybacks are typically not the type of guns that we see being used out on the street. It's typically something that somebody finds in the back closet, or sometimes these guns are not even workable. But it is an option to consider, because any firearm that we take off the street is a firearm that could potentially hurt someone and get put in a place of safety. We'd be happy to partner with any organization. I'm a little bit reluctant as the sheriff's office itself doing a gun buyback because somebody brings a gun in, we have to check that firearm and make sure it's not stolen and that sort of thing. And we want to sort of have people to feel comfortable to bring a firearm in and receive whatever payment in return for that. So we'd be happy to partner with an organization, and then when those firearms are collected, certainly we will put them in a safe place for keeping or storage.
As a follow-up, one of the things that could be a deterrent is whether the firearms are stolen or not. The one we did years ago at the church, one was offering $50 at that time, and it was no questions asked. The other one was the electronic store was offering a radio, stereo. If that comes about again, and just based on what you're saying, people usually just share and go and find crap and give up crap. And I guess, sort of like Macon-Bibb this past weekend did an amnesty on tires. Is that something that you think could work? Because we're all working, trying to improve and with our MVP plan to get gun violence reduced. And I'm just thinking, and we haven't done it in a while, I know, in our community. If we do it, do we need to get with some folks to say, we're going to do an amnesty day, young folks, somebody's got a gun, you want to change the community. And maybe that's something we can just talk about behind the scene, but I think something along those lines it could possibly, we need to look at. But that's how we can really talk about it.
Certainly something to discuss. Certainly something we'd be happy to talk about.
Yeah, I just had a question of clarification. This appropriation does not result in any publicly held firearms transferring to private ownership in any way, correct? Okay, thank you.
That's right.
Thank you, Pro Tem Clark. At this time, I entertain a motion for approval. Got a motion by Pro Tem Clark, second by Commissioner Tillman. I believe that's Commissioner Tillman, right? Okay. Any other questions? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries, will be sent to consent agenda. Thank you. Our next item is a state and legislative matters. This is a resolution requesting that the local legislative delegation introduce or support legislation that would increase the per diem rate for the residential care and treatment of abused and neglected children. That's sponsored by Commissioner Mallory Jones. Commissioner Jones, I'd ask you to expound on that, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I was approached by Allison Evans, who's president of the Methodist Home for Children and Youth, is their full name. And you can see in the resolution, it talks about 60% of Georgia's children served by the state welfare system are served by private providers such as the Methodist Home for Children and Youth, South Georgia Conference, Georgia Industrial Home, and Twin Cedars, organizations like that. So these kids are, I don't know how much you know about the Methodist Home, that's the one I know the most about, but these kids are what Daddy Rick Lanford would tell you, they're the throwaway kids. They've been abused, neglected. As I said, he calls them the throwaway kids. So this is to ask for an increase at the state level. For the last, they've had an increase since 2007, 4.5%, which is way, way below the cost of living. So this is simply a resolution to encourage and to advocate and support and to ask our state legislators to come up with legislation to increase this per diem amount to support these organizations. They're way behind, and they provide a great service, and they actually turn lives around because these kids are coming from abused or neglected homes. So it's simply that to ask the state legislature to come up with legislation to increase the per diem rate, which is way, way behind.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Pro Tem Clark.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you for bringing this forward and ask to be added as a co-sponsor, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Tillman.
Yeah, my concern is, how does it benefit the children? I mean, because if, you say he called them the throwaway kids. If they're age 18, basically they're homeless. and we know that we are fighting homelessness, and a lot of times when we're trying to get different support of the homeless, sometimes that's looked at in a negative light by this commission. So I don't see giving somebody else that's supervising kids more money to do their job when nonprofits around here volunteering and doing it for free. And so now we want to ask the state and lead the way to say give somebody more money to do what they ought to be doing for our children. We oftentimes always talk about God's greatest gift in creation is our children, but now we want to give folks more money to do what most folks and nonprofits are doing for free. And I yield.
Mr. Lucas?
Oh, goodness. Were it not for the work of these different agencies, these kids truly would be thrown away. So I think what happens with agencies like the Methodist Home, the Georgia Industrial Home, others, and then there are individuals who take care of children. So I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor. Commissioner Jones, I think this is great. It's sort of pleasant sitting beside you and on something like this. And so that's all I wanted to say, that these kinds of things help those kids that a lot of folks they want every child to come here. They want to restrict all kinds of things, but then they don't want to provide support for these children that they want to call throwaway after they're here. So I think I'd be very pleased and work to advocate on behalf of this. And I think all of us ought to add our names as co-sponsors, because this is something that's real important. One last thing, there are a number of these students who have finished their high school diploma through our school, and there are a lot of services that are provided to these children, and most of them become very productive. And so, but they've not had an increase in fees, but everything else has gone up. Everything else has gone up. So I'd like for us to send a strong message that they need to look at this. And I think this is an appropriate time too, since the state is getting a whole lot of money in as well that they need to spend on people. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. They say Christmas is a time for miracles, and I've seen one today. Commissioner Jones, would you like to go ahead and make that motion, sir?
Just add to my comments, if I may, my respected colleague over there, they are doing their job that no other people do. And you want to talk about catching things, being proactive, and taking children that are abused and neglected and have no home or have such a horrible place to live, and they can go to a loving, faith-built place like the Methodist Home for Children and Youth. They literally transform lives and catch it on the early end. So these kids they graduate from high school, many of them graduate from college, and they're very productive citizens. And if you haven't visited the home, you ought to go over there and visit. Either Allison Evans or Lonnie Bivens, Vice President in charge of facilities. April, his last name is escaping me, but you talk about somebody who does a world of good in this community that impacts us all, whether we see it or not. It's a wonderful place. I'd like to make that motion. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Got a motion by Commissioner Jones. We'll get a second. Second by Commissioner Howell, who also has a question. Mr. Howell.
Yeah, not so much a question, just a comment on this, and please add me as a co-sponsor. You had me at Rick Lanford. I know that if Rick's involved, that's all I really needed to know. However, I'm involved in another children's home, the Masonic home over in Shirley Hills, and this $60,000 is a drop in the bucket if we change one life. These kids come from broken homes, and this is one way we're breaking the chain. I know the MVP program is about helping, and this just fits right in with that. And like I say, $60,000 is a drop in the bucket if we turn one kid's life around and show them a different way. So absolutely, I'm on board with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. If anyone would like to be added for a sponsor on that, please let Ms. Ross know. We do have a motion and second. If there's no further questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Yes, sir.
Good if this is one of those legislations where everybody would sign, and I think that would have great impact going to the state legislature,
Sure.
asking for their support.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I will also tell the commissioners that we were scheduled to meet with, at least I know I am, the local delegation on the 21st next week, waiting on a time for that. It will be by Zoom. If you have any particular items that you'd like for me to promote to the local delegation, please email me those items, and I'll be happy to pass those on. Their time is very limited, and we get very little time to promote items, but if we have bullet points or legislation you want to consider, it will be a good time to do that for initial before their meetings begin in January. So we're going to move on to a change of code item. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 7, Articles 2, Division 22, Section 512 of the code for the purpose of imposing additional minimum distance requirements on businesses offering coin-operated amusement machines that we call COAM to the public. Was this item tabled the other day? Yes. Okay. This is a tabled item from the other day. At this time, I'd make a motion to remove that from the table. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Howell. So we have a motion and a second to remove this item from the table for the purpose of discussion today. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. All those opposed, nay. That motion passes with one nay, and we'll have that discussed at this time. So, Commissioner Watkins, since this is your item that is sponsored by you, if you could give information preliminary about this particular item before discussion.
Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this item. So to keep it kind of simple, I think most folks are familiar with our alcohol code, including minimum distance requirements as it relates to how close you can be to a school or a church or some type of medical facility, or assistance abuse facility, also public housing. Like I say, most folks are familiar with being 200 yards away from those, and this is adding those same provisions, but just to the COAM machines. And just a few places in our community, folks have learned, and again, that if you open up a Vice Mart or a convenience store minus alcohol, you're able to be that much closer to the housing projects or some type of government-owned facility that would be in a protected class. So this provides those protections, but just to COAM machines, but pretty much the same distance as what we see with alcohol.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. Commissioner Howell, you have a question, concern?
Yeah, I have the same concerns on this that I had the other night, and I'm just going back through now and checking I don't have a problem with the spirit of this amendment, with this ordinance. I do have an issue with some of the distances. I find that some of this is a little more restrictive than maybe a convenience store that just sells wine and beer. I don't see where we would restrict a store anymore for that distance than we do wine and beer when it relates to schools or churches or whatever. I would certainly like to maybe do a friendly amendment to this if we're going to discuss it, but trying to get to the right point here.
You want to think about your amendment for just one moment? I got the attorney before. Maybe she can give us a little bit more legal explanation on what this entails, specifically about what you can be close to and not close to, and whether this is going to affect any current business owners, and if they are grandfathered in. I know we had a gentleman here who may be here again today that had a concern about owning a business and he would not be grandfathered in for any tenants that he may have this week. So we want to talk through that. Also, this is one, since it's a change to the code, is going to require a hearing, public hearing at some point in time or not.
This is not a change to the alcohol code.
Okay.
This is just a change to our code of ordinances.
Okay, thanks for that understanding. So if you'll go ahead and give us a little bit more information about that for other commissioners before we look at any potential amendments.
All right, I just want to make it clear that we already had these distance requirements in the code. We are just adding more as we've changed our alcohol code. We didn't go back and update the COAM code. So we are just making that consistent with what the alcohol code says at this point. So I want to point out what's new in these requirements versus what we previously already had in the requirements. One of the new requirements is that you cannot be within 1,500 feet of a business of a location licensed for the sale of distilled spirits by the package.
And Attorney Davis, if you don't mind, if you'll direct them to where you're at when you're in that document, so if those that are following along can follow along with you.
Yes, sir. I'm in section 1, chapter, this is discussing chapter 7, article 2, division 22. This is all changes to section 7, 512, and we are in subsection A. Subsection A1, as I said, is new. I have made references to the alcohol code section that we are pulling these distance requirements from, so you can go back and cross-reference them. Subsection 2 is also new. It is a prohibition from being within 2,500 feet of an existing Vice Mart or other small box retail store or any small box discount store which has an active alcohol license under Chapter 4 of the code. So Vice Marts, I think that includes discount stores that are those all have to be selling alcohol, but you can't be within 2,500 feet of those. 3 is where we didn't make a lot of changes from what was previously in the code. Let me point out what is new. You cannot be within 100 yards of church. That was in the previous version. Church property is something added. Macon-Bibb County Recreation Center property has been added. An alcohol treatment center, that was in the old version. A public library or any branch thereof, that's new. And then Macon-Bibb County Housing Authority property, that was in the old version. And then subsection 4 is all previously from the old version, the way the code was already written. It's 200 yards of a school ground, school building, educational building, or college campus. And that was all previously in there. I haven't made any changes to that. In addition to those distance requirements, we have a grandfather clause, that is subsection C. It says this section will not apply to any business which held an active license for the operation of these COAM machines, bona fide coin-operated amusement machines, from the Georgia Lottery issued on or before December 15th of this year. That means, as it is currently written, if you hold a bona fide, oh my gosh, coin-operated amusement machine, you already have an active license from the Georgia Lottery, as of December 15th, none of these sections apply to you. If you get one after December the 15th, these new and these old minimum distance requirements will apply. And that is how the legislation is currently drafted. The violation for this is $500 per day fine.
And Attorney, just let ask one follow-up question. So the current grandfather, I think that's where we have some concern is, current grandfather, if I'm an existing business, not necessarily property owner, but business owner, and I have my license for all these, I can continue to do business as usual, but if I were to sell that business, it would go away?
This applies as written. The ordinance applies to the person holding the COAM license from the Georgia Lottery. So if you are a property owner who does not have a COAM license, you're leasing it out to a business owner who does, as long as that person has a valid COAM license from the Georgia Lottery as of the 15th, then the distance requirements do not apply. If you get a new tenant in who does not have a valid COAM license from the Georgia Lottery by the 15th of this year, then the distance requirements would apply and they would not be able to sell or have their COAM machines inside the building.
And if someone wanted to protect the business owner there, so if they brought a new tenant in, is there a particular language that need to be inserted in there to protect that if that was the intent?
Yes, if we wanted to change this, make an amendment, the way it would be amended is to apply to the property I would draft it the way that it would be properties that have a business inside of them that have an active license as of today. Any of those properties could be grandfathered in, as well as the businesses that hold the license. It just depends on what your legislative policy is, and that comes from y'all.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lucas?
Yeah, I appreciate all the explanation, because that was some of the questions that I had down here. So you are saying that we're okay in enacting these changes, that there's nothing that prohibits us from, they're not any more restrictive than than the state requires.
This is explicitly allowed by Georgia law, that we can be as restrictive as our alcohol code. So as our alcohol code gets more restrictive, we can get more restrictive on COAM. And that is one of the very few ways we can regulate COAM machines in the county.
Okay. My concern with this, and I've stated it before, the state loves all these things because they benefit greatly from them. My fear, and I've seen it over time, that if you tinker too much, and I'm for restrictions on these things. I know people develop addictions to alcohol, to the gambling machines, all of that, and I know I sympathize with those who feel very strongly about that. I feel very strongly too. But my fear is that if we keep tinkering with this, that the state's going to start looking at it too. And they're going to place some restrictions on us that will curtail our ability to make some decisions locally. And that is my concern. I've seen it happen with a lot of different things. Some areas of sales tax, some other kinds of things where they saw that cities and counties were infringing too much, their opinion, and they enacted some things that kept localities from further restrictions. So that's my concern with this, that we just keep on after it and tinkering with it, and we end up not being able to have any regulation. So that's my concern.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. Commissioner Jones?
Yes, sir. Sarah, I'm trying to follow what you said, and what would be helpful to me, perhaps others, is what is it now, and you told us what it was going to. Give me the current and what it's going to, and then I'd have a question for Commissioner Watkins, if I may, as far as what he hopes to accomplish with this.
Okay. As of right now, Section 7.512 of our code states, any business location which offers to the public one or more bona fide coin-operated amusement machines may not be located within 100 yards of any church building, within 200 yards of any school building, educational building, school grounds, or college campus, within 100 yards of any alcoholic treatment center, or within 100 yards of any housing authority property. That is how it currently reads.
Okay, so what are the expansions then? What's it expanding to?
Let me read to you just the new expansions.
Yep.
The first one is there's going to be a new one for 1,500 feet of a location licensed for the sale of distilled spirits by the package. 2,500 feet of any existing Vice Mart, other small box retail store, or any small box discount store which holds an active license under Chapter 4. That means any alcohol license. In addition, we've added 100 yards of any church property, 100 yards of Macon-Bibb County Recreation Center property, 100 yards of public library or any branch thereof. And that's all the new additions as far as distance requirements. Now, the grandfather clause is new. There was no grandfather clause before. And if you enact it, it's starting from December 15th of this year. So businesses that, like before, if they were barred, then the bar moves up now to December 15th of this year. Do you have any other questions about what's new? There's a couple other new things, but I don't want to get into the nuance.
So the 1,500 was not there before, and the 2,500, and that was feet or yards?
These are in feet, and those were not there before, no.
Grandfather clause applies to the owner of the property and no one else. It doesn't apply to the property itself.
It applies to the owner of the business with the license from Georgia Lottery.
If I may, to Commissioner Watkins, and I wish we didn't have any of them, but we do. And what do you hope to accomplish by extending this distance? You know, the libertarian side of me says, you know, if it's legal and they're following the rules and they're not violating it, it's not necessarily the cost benefit. I guess it's the cost to a potential owner, but what's the benefit to us by expanding these distances?
Thank you, sir. So one of the issues is I think expanding the distances allows us to do something about the density and concentration of substitution businesses that, again, have a lot of vices to them. And like I say, and there's a couple of areas, and we're getting better about it, but within 2,500 feet of some of our projects, particularly on Houston Avenue, there is a concentration that seems to be excessive. Coupled with the fact of my experience here on Macon-Bibb County Commission is that we do a lot of change of ownerships as it relates to these types of businesses. And anecdotally from the Georgia Lottery Commission, a lot of those change of ownerships are happening to people that would have been in trouble with them, but it's a benefit to change the ownership to keep everything in compliance. So adding an extra level or extra thought process to business owners to hopefully keep them in compliance, and understanding that it's just not easy to and for some addresses I'm accurate, particularly Montpelier. We just approved another one where we're approving new licenses or change of ownership within 18 months for the same location. That should be a red flag to us and others. But the way our laws currently are, we don't have any stop gaps or anything to really prevent such a thing. So, and also with this, I did want to make a comment to Commissioner Lucas as well. As it relates to state action, the state has formed a couple of task force and study committees on this issue, one of which is headed up by Senator John Kennedy. And there were a couple of takeaways that I'm in favor of, and I think the state's in favor of, because particularly, again, the folks that are getting in trouble. What we're looking at here are the individuals and the businesses who are able to or are comfortable being in the gray area and providing cash payouts. The Georgia Lottery Commission, as well as the study committee from the state Senate, are recommending implementing gift cards statewide that be controlled by the Georgia Lottery and will become the only form of payment that a winner could receive that they think would drastically reduce the cash payout situation. But the state legislator ran out of time in getting that all the way through. Also, that 50-50 rule that we talk about in terms of the way that the payout should not exceed 50% of their gross sales is a law that the state would like to see enforced a bit more. Again, this is primarily a problem for the stores that we call Vice Marts, who have very little proof of any other item that they can sell, including gas, that are, traditionally are on a monthly basis reporting excess of 6 figures of revenue from a store, and still are able to say that 50% of their sales are from something other than the lotto machines. Again, that's what starts kind of the process with a red flag at the Georgia Lottery Commission, and from conversations and emails with them, often before they can get through the full investigation, there's a new owner, and the old owner who did the thing is in the wind somewhere. again, it's an industry. Convenience stores, gas stations are an industry that are very much embedded in America, but there are a small percentage of vendors and business owners who, with the goal of making additional money above what a lot of the industry thinks is uncommon, are finding ways to skirt the laws. And right now, we as the regulative body, making Georgia and also the state, are a little behind in the way that we do stuff, and trying to keep up with the trends that they're doing. So both of these are just, and I guess it's kind of stressful to us. I think I've heard from many of that sit on our board that we would be in favor of removing these or being even more drastic. But we have to, because of the state preemptions, we have to circle around the edges and give them what we can. And right now, this is one of the things that we can do, increase our distance requirements. So that's my logic.
Mr. Jones, I take care of your questions?
I think so.
Mr. Howell?
Cup of coffee, it's gonna take a minute. I'm gonna start from the bottom and work back up. So, talk about business property owners versus license holders. My problem with that particular deal is if I own a property that has a license currently, but I don't hold the license, I only hold the property. My tenant holds the license. If my tenant leaves, the license disappears. Is that correct? Currently.
That is correct.
So the heartburn I have with that is basically you're letting my tenant dictate what he's going to pay in rent from now on because he holds the license. He knows that it gives him a whole lot more negotiating power as a tenant versus the owner if we change it to that, or if we're where we're at right now. If we let the property, if I have a falling out with my tenant and I want to put a new tenant in there, then as the property owner, hey, we've had a license here. I couldn't negotiate with this guy, but I can negotiate with him. I guess I want to make sure if we go that way that we get the wording right. However, if we do that, I think we kind of kill the spirit of what we're trying to do here. So I guess part of my problem is what we do to try to fix something on Houston Avenue may greatly affect and have unintended consequences on what might happen out on Houston Road out in the county. So I'm not sure I want to go there with that particular thing, but I'm certainly open to discussions about it and working our way through that. So that's number one. Number two, just to make sure I'm very clear on this, and this is very elementary, on section 7512A, number 1, 1,500 feet of a location. That's a package store, right? A liquor store, not somebody that sells wine or beer.
This is a liquor store, yes.
That is a liquor store. Okay, so I'm cool with 1. 2, 2,500 feet of an existing. So if I have a store that has these machines in it, and across the street from my store there's another store that sells wine or beer, that would eliminate the renewal of license or the new license.
If it falls under one of these definitions of Vice Mart, and other small box retail store, or any small box discount store. So if it falls under one of those definitions, I don't think that includes a gas station.
It wouldn't include just a regular convenience store that sells gas that happens to sell wine or happens to sell beer.
It's only these defined terms in the code, in the alcohol code, and I would have to look those up. I don't have those handy right now.
Yeah, and that would be something that in simple terms, if I've got a convenience store across the street that sells typical convenience store stuff, gasoline, and happens to sell beer, does that store fall into that particular?
I don't believe gas stations are included.
Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, 100 yards of any church, church property, and so forth. I don't have a problem with that one if we change it to church building. I have a real issue with property because a church may own several acres before you actually get to the church. So if we're measuring from building to building, I don't have any heartburn with that. I do have heartburn with property to property.
I'll make a note of that.
That's number 3. Number 4, 200 yards from a school, school building, educational building, or college campus. If we could change that to 100 yards, I wouldn't have a problem with that. That's 300 feet versus 600 feet. Again, what may affect us on Houston Avenue may have unintended consequences further out in the country.
I can make that change
Well,
if you're suggesting an amendment, but I.
Can you say it again, Commissioner Allen? Can you just say it one more time? I'm just taking notes.
Which one, all of them, or?
No. Not the one after church property to build, church
Okay,
property to build.
it's point number 4 says 200 feet, I'm sorry, 200 yards from a school ground, school building, education building, or college campus. I'm good with 100. I'm good with 100 yards or 300 feet, just not 600 feet. And I don't know if I'm making an amendment here or not, but I mean, that's kind of, that was my questions. And if I need to make an amendment, that's fine. I think you've cleared up my questions though.
To be clear, that 200 yards is in the old version, so your suggested change would be less restrictive than our code currently is as it stands today.
But is the 200 yards in the code, is that concerning package stores or is that concerning beer and wine stores?
That's the most restrictive condition.
Which is?
That's for package stores. Is the most
Or package
restrictive.
stores.
Yes.
But if it was just beer and wine, yeah, I know it's kind of doing it to me too. If it's just beer and wine, then I think it's 100 yards. I believe that's what I was told the other day.
I'd have to review it.
Yeah, because I think this is the most restrictive, and I understand that we're going, but I think the 200 in the language right now is package stores, not beer and wine stores.
So, can I ask for a clarification?
Sure.
Sounds like right now, at least, you want to suggest some amendments, and let me make sure I get them right, because that's the only way to do it from here. We can talk about your amendments if you get a motion in a second. One is that you're changing 200 yards of a school ground. Is that what you're talking about, to 100? Or where are you changing 200 to 100?
That's in the amendment number 4.
Okay, all right.
Changing that from 2 to 1.
So your proposed amendment will be 200 yards. It's the minimum distance requirements, 100 yards of a school ground, school buildings, educational buildings, or college campus. That would be one. Okay. Another one would be to delete, and you kind of talked about this. I just want to make sure you had concerns about it, and I understand. Would be to delete church property, or do you want to not delete church property?
I want to delete church property, but just strike church property.
Yep.
But behind any church building. And to make, in full disclosure here, my concern is about a church that has a church proper, but then they have a cemetery that's 5 acres. Well, there's never going to be anything on that cemetery except permanent residence.
Okay.
There's never going to be a building on it, but it is church property. And so if we put church property, then it's directly across, it's the next property over from a particular store.
So
and that's my biggest concern.
So your proposed is to strike through church property on 3 and substitute add building after church. So it would read the church building, 100 yards of any church building, Macon-Bibb County Recreation Center, et cetera. That would be okay for your
church building, and then strike property, because
got it.
That could be pretty encompassing.
Got it. All right. So that's number 2, proposed amendment. Have you got the definition yet of?
I have
No.
the
Vice
definition
Mart.
of Vice Mart. Yeah.
Can you go through that with Commissioner so see if he wants to do anything on number 2,
All right.
A2. Yeah, I don't think C stores would apply, but let's.
Okay, a Vice Mart is a retail store that provides assorted, inexpensive items for neighborhood residents or travelers, such as processed, shelf-stable, or refrigerated food and drink items, fountain drinks, handheld prepared food items, automotive items, tobacco products, family planning products, lottery products, over-the-counter medications, or similar items. They're designed for expediency, with customers typically buying few items per transactions and spending a short amount of time in the store. The retail space is typically less than 10,000 square feet. It does not include gas stations, grocery stores, food marts, small box discount stores, specialty stores, or drug stores. So your gas station convenience center would not apply. And then this.
And you said that was already in the code anyway, correct? Or something real close to that, so.
This is a new provision.
Yeah.
This is new.
But I'm okay with that one.
You're
I think-
okay with that?
I think
Okay.
we're clear on that one.
So your proposed amendments would be the 100 yards we just talked about, and adding and substituting property with building, so it'd be church building. Any other proposed amendments?
Actually, I'd rather do that than to go back and change the wording about property owner versus, because I think that's gonna defeat everything we're trying to do here if we make a blanket statement that if you own it, because then that way you just keep moving people around like what's going on now.
Okay. Are you asking for a motion to amend with those numbers? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Howell to amend. We have a second. Got a second, Commissioner Wilder. So we have a motion and a second on the amendment. We'll vote on that first, on the amended item, and then we'll go back. So we have a motion and a second on Commissioner Howell's, okay.
Is this a motion to the two amendments at the same time?
Anybody object to that? You want to take them one at a time?
I'd prefer to take them one at a time because I just want a little bit more clarification on the logic behind this, the 200 to 100 change. That's all.
Because I'm confused. I don't know if anybody else is, but I admit it. I don't think we're going to do justice if we rush through with any of these amendments and all of that, because I am not clear on everything. So I don't. Well, it's been, well, okay.
You're not gonna
We
make a
can
motion?
speak in a work session and get all of this straight, and then not take all day today on this, because this is taking a while.
What's your pleasure,
And I'm
Commissioner Lucas?
confused.
All right, you got a motion to
Would a
table?
motion to table be in order? I would like to move to table for work session.
I've already talked to the attorney. He said a motion table if she gets a second. Motion table got a second by Commissioner Jones. That's no discussion. We have a motion to table by Commissioner Lucas with a second by Commissioner Jones. All those in favor of the motion to table, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. I think we got Tillman, Clark, and who's the other nay? Okay. All right. The motion's hereby tabled, and we'll try again. Put it on the
Work
calendar.
session.
Okay.
To a work session.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. Progress from last time. Commissioner Tillman?
I can't prove it, but I think my light was on before she made that motion and spoke out of turn. I can't prove it, but happy holidays, and we moving forward.
I see you're in the Christmas spirit. I like your jacket, sir. Thank you. All right. Mr. Jones, did you have something further?
Just for the record, I think mine was on 2, but I was going to motion to table. I don't agree with the definition of a vice mart when our attorney reads out all those things, and yes, you can call tobacco, yeah, okay, but all those service convenience items that the public enjoys, we need to work on what our definition of a vice mart is.
Yes, sir. I think y'all all passed that unanimously a while back, but y'all can revisit it anytime you want.
I'll bring it back up.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Watkins? You have a lot on,
I'll yield. I would appreciate maybe next time that the amendment is according to the rules. Write it down, pass it out like I have to do every time when I make an amendment.
We
Like,
never got to
that
the
would make
amendment.
us a little bit
Yeah.
more clear on this.
Yeah, we never got to the amendment, but our attorney was writing it down for the record. So, I mean, we never got to that phase. We certainly would do what we're supposed to do. Commissioner Tillman, is your light on this time? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a saying, milk does the body good. Stand in order, as the commissioner said, will do us all some good in 2022.
Yes, sir. We are in order, but the rules are the rules, and we follow them, even though we may not like them sometimes. So we do. We have that item tabled. It'll be back once someone brings it on table again. We do have a need to go into executive session. It will not. It should be brief. Do not expect to have any items to vote on after the executive session, but we'll go into executive session in just a moment. If we get the votes to do so, we'll have a short meeting. We will come back out, exit executive session. We will not adjourn the meeting. We will take a recess, and we will tour a location downtown around 11 o'clock. So this time I entertain a motion to go into executive session for the reasons mentioned and allowed by law in executive session. Can I get a motion to go into executive session? A motion by Pro Tem Clark, a second. Second. Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. We're now in executive session. I get a motion to come out of executive session. Got a motion by Commissioner Clark, second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we're now out of executive session back in, oh, sorry. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. We're now out of executive session. No further items brings us to do business today. There's no vote coming out of executive session. We are going to recess for a tour of the Hotel 45 by commissioners and mayor and staff. We will conclude our meeting and adjourn at the conclusion of that. For right now, we're going to recess. Thank you.